So today, we're going to focus on the top 10 moments that have happened so far on the first 10 episodes of the Rolle podcast. 10K of lip balm in a day.
Selling chapstick.
If you tell yourself, ooh, I can't sell $1 million homes for at least 10 years, sure, you can think that. Or how about rise to the occasion when opportunity presents itself?
It's really important to deploy a system that collects first-party data and allows you to market to your consumer on your own terms.
You can learn a lot by talking to the management and gauging where their vision is with the company.
My first product broke even, but guess what? Whatever I did connected me to you, connected me to this. All these things are some way going to get me to where I want to go.
Because if you don't know why something took off and is doing really well, how can you replicate it?
It's going back to the financial freedom portion where the only way you can create that is by not putting yourself in debt.
So with an employee, when you first hire them, the first 3 months typically, you're going to be doing most of the work.
Why can't we share who we are and what we believe? Our people are going to gravitate towards us.
It would have been scary, but that's part of what being pushed into the deep end does, right? The strongest are going to survive. Welcome back to a special episode of the Roll with Steve. We talk about all things buying businesses, scaling businesses, starting businesses from scratch, side hustles to help you in your entrepreneurial journey. If you've got a day job you want to quit, you got a small business you want to get better at, you have a business that you want to grow to the next level to turn it into millions of dollars. That's what we talk about here on this podcast. So today, we're going to focus on the top 10 moments that have happened so far on the first 10 episodes of the Rolle with Steve podcast. Let's get right to number one. Kobe Harris, CEO and founder of Kobe's Co., who's going to share with us why we should stop overthinking this whole jump into business. Kobe's fresh off Shark Tank where he turned down Mr. Wonderful for a deal. Let's see what he has to say. On lip balm.
Yeah.
10K of lip balm in a day.
Selling chapstick, you know what I mean? A $5 little tube. And I woke up one day, I had like 150 orders. That was probably the most I've ever had, like up until that point. And that
was from an influencer posting about your product.
Yeah.
So you had built out the infrastructure already at this point. Like you must have had a Shopify store or something like that was built up.
Yeah. So, I spent 3 hours one night drinking with one of my buddies, and I was like, hey, I'm going to need help putting this website together. So we edited up some photos, made some copy, and within three hours, we had the basic theme on Shopify with some of our inputted pictures, our edited little photos, and just threw it up there. So it wasn't anything fancy.
But isn't that a funny point, though? Because how many people are out there who are thinking about starting their Shopify store and getting started, and they're thinking about, I want the website to be this, I want it to be that. I don't know how long it's going to take. I've never built a Shopify store before. You built yours in 3 hours because you had a need to get it done.
Yeah, 3 hours. Yeah, because my buddy was like, hey, I want to buy it. And I was like, I don't have a website. Let me just put that together. So I was like, did it that night.
The inspiration that comes from that, because there's a lot of people that I think really overthink business. They get so tied up in the little intricacies of having everything perfect when it's really all about the fundamentals. Someone wants to buy what you have. You built something for them to do that, and Shopify existed to make that easy, but it wasn't complicated to do it. You just had to have a reason to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? I 100% agree with that. I think it's kind of like that analysis paralysis. Like you think there's so many different options out there, and I still am at fault for this myself today. Like I do this a lot. Like there's so many different things that I can be doing, but you just have to really decide what is important. And especially for somebody that's just getting started, it's just like you might have a product that you want to sell. You need a place to sell it, and then just put those two and two together. Don't think about, get the LLC, the bank accounts, all that other stuff, like, set up your taxes. And, I got to pay all this. I got to do this. No, you don't.
People will start tax planning before they've ever made a sale.
Yeah, and that's
I want to make sure I can write off this. And it's like, dude, you have no revenue.
Yeah, none.
Like, why are you focused on anything but getting revenue?
Yeah, none. Yeah.
That's the telltale sign of an amateur almost every single time. They're hyper-focused on the little intricacies instead of the fundamentals that are there.
Agreed.
Okay, so you get to a point where you did 10K in a day of lip balm from influencer posting, and that's the moment that you realize I got something here.
Yeah, from being that age and seeing, talking to my parents about, how much they make, and obviously I wasn't doing this every single month, but just seeing the power of being able to sell online and being able to do $10,000 to $15,000 in sales in one single day, like that's a lot of money. And if you figure out how you can make that a repeatable process or use another system to sell that many on a consistent basis, I mean, there's no bounds to what you can really do.
Kobe is so right about that. Like, you don't have to have everything figured out. If you have a customer that wants to buy something from you, that's a forcing function that now enables you to go and build your website. Too many people get in this mindset of I have to get the perfect Shopify store, and they spend hours and days and weeks or months putting a Shopify store together, and they don't have any customers that want their product. Kobe tells us that's backwards. Instead of doing it that way, get the customer first and then build a forum for them to come and purchase from you. That's lesson number 1. Let's jump right to number 2. David Gavri. This is a guy who's in the Las Vegas real estate market who jumped right out of commercial real estate into the residential market, right into selling $1 million homes. Most realtors want to come in and start with condos, work their way up to townhouses, work their way up to single family homes, and then get into luxury. David flipped that script and went right into the luxury market. Here's what he had to say about it. Why is it that you're winning while everyone else who's been doing this for a long time is not getting the same deals that you're getting?
Yeah. And sometimes I wake up and I'm like, really? Like another one? Like I do sometimes feel that like, there's a mix of emotions. There's the, oh my God, like, can I actually do this? Can I actually do this? And then there's the, like we have to, we have no choice. We have to make this work because I want to do the best that I can do. Like, I'm not a half-ass kind of person. I don't know if we could say cuss on here.
We'll say the F word if you want to. Okay, it's like Bill Maher on HBO. We can let it all go.
But I legit cannot. I can't do real estate as a side hustle. Like, in fact, at the time I was still working an office job and I tried it, and I was actually now bad at both. Like my mind was split in both directions, and I was giving subpar results on both sides. So I'm very all or none. I have to jump all the way in. And so why do so many realtors fail? The ones I think that do it as a side hustle, I don't think it's possible in this day and age.
Why is that?
I just think that people want top-notch, stellar service. And how do you give someone like as best as you can when you're pulled in other directions too, if you're working another job? Not to mention if you have a family and other things, like how much time can you really devote to giving someone their best on their biggest transaction of their biggest asset? Like if you flip the script, I don't want to hire anyone who does anything part-time, whether that be an electrician or a contractor. Like if I find out, wait a minute, he's working another job somewhere, like how, like it just,
I can imagine how that would feel if I'm calling you and I'm like, hey, I had a few questions about this contract before I sign. Like, hey, can you call me? I'm on, my lunch break's about to be done. Can I call you back at 5? It's like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What lunch break? That's not okay.
Right.
Like, you're not the guy.
It's a big sale. It's a big purchase. We're not helping you sell a couch on OfferUp. I mean, this is like big deal. So I think that you have to be able to devote every ounce of your attention to them at their beck and call. It sounds silly to say it, but the realtors I know that are successful actually answer their phone. I think there was a time, I don't know how long ago, when if you didn't get a call back for 2 weeks, like you thought, wow, they must be really killing it. Like they are so successful that they can't even call me back for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And nowadays it's like we're all glued to our devices.
Yeah.
Like there's no excuse
I know you saw it.
There's no excuse in this day and age. So I think the attention is in the details, and it all matters. All of it matters. And so therefore, in order to give someone your best, for me personally, I have to be all in.
Yeah. Okay, but the average realtor that comes in, I think, let's dig into the mindset, because so many of them I feel like are saying, I got to work my way up to the $1 million listings. I'm going to start with this condo for $250,000. And if that goes well, then I'll work my way up and I'll leverage that experience to go there. Do you have to have the mindset that you're $1 million agent to go out and get $1 million listings? Or what do you say to the person that wants to start small and work their way up?
Yeah. I used to think like that in comedy and even in poker. It was, I'm going to start at the little rinky-dink bar shows, and then maybe I'll work up to, the Improv Comedy Club. But I actually quickly learned that from seeing, like, wait a minute, I just saw this guy at the bar show, and he's already at headliner status at the Improv. How did that happen?
Yeah.
And so I think it was a mindset shift, and if you think like that, then yeah, if you tell yourself, ooh, I can't sell $1 million homes for at least 10 years. Okay. I mean, sure, you can think that. Or how about rise to the occasion when opportunity presents itself? And we just got lucky and had an opportunity fall in our lap. And we said, okay, how do we maximize on this now? Like, we can do this now. And if even the things that we can't do, let's find people who can do it and let's work with them and collaborate with them so that we can make this a success. So it was more like, what are you going to do if an opportunity like that falls in your lap? You're going to say, oh no, I still need 9 more years.
Yeah.
Go away,
I'm
opportunity.
doing lower listings right now. Sorry.
I don't know. I'm a big thinker of like, hey, if the opportunity knocks, you answer it and you do your best right then and there, because you don't know when that opportunity is going to come again.
This is such a powerful lesson to learn, especially for new people coming into new businesses or those going into new industries. You don't have to put yourself in a scenario that says, hey, I'm not good enough to go and sell luxury homes yet. It starts right here with the mindset that I'm a luxury realtor. And that's what David decided to do, is to say, I'm a luxury realtor. I'm going to go sell the first $1 million home and then leverage that into selling many other $1 million homes. Go watch that full episode. You'll get some great value out of the mindset shift from someone like him who's new to the industry and jumped right into doing $1 million homes. Lesson number 3, and this is episode with Nick Perkins, who's the CMO of multiple companies and also a partner in a digital marketing firm. And he's got advice for the number one thing that every business should be doing from day one. This applies to big businesses, small businesses, and even your startup and side hustle. The number one thing you should be doing. Here's what Nick had to say. What's an emerging market trend right now or market tool that you think all small businesses should jump on right now?
Every single small business needs a CRM. With the advent of going cookieless and Google saying, we're not going to give you all of this data on the users, it's really important to deploy a system that collects first-party data and allows you to market to your consumer on your own terms. So investing in a platform like HubSpot is a really great way to build your client list, understand what they're doing on your website, and understand what value props you're going to market with are causing them to convert.
It's interesting that you say CRM, because that's not what I would have expected. I would have expected something to do with AI, but these CRMs, like, this is a little bit lost on me of, okay, why the CRM for like an e-commerce company getting started? Like, they need a CRM at what point? Like 10,000 a month in revenue, you should have a CRM. You should be ready to go with that.
Day one, you need a CRM.
Wow. Help me understand in my thick brain skull of why the CRM is a tool to use today.
CRMs are dirt cheap to get started. In some instances, it's free. So HubSpot offers free services for small companies, and it's really just a platform for you to build your existing client base. So if you have people who are purchasing products, how are you going to nurture them down the funnel to make them turn into repeat customers? How do you turn them into advocates? A CRM is the main platform to do so and host all of your marketing data to make data-driven decisions.
Interesting. So if you say HubSpot and I say something like ClickFunnels is basically just a CRM that the funnels live inside of that we're working with, right? So HubSpot's
Correct.
kind of the same thing there.
Kind of the same thing. It's a little bit more robust and allows to scale up a ton. Like, there's so much scalability within HubSpot.
Yeah. See, this is one of the mistakes I think I've made in my businesses over the years. Number one, the over-reliance on Amazon. But number two, I hope I've had tens of thousands or 100,000 customers that have come to my actual brand website, direct to consumer, over the years. I have not captured a single email of that traffic. And I'm ashamed of it to this day, because I think about, I have no way to talk to my customers except by going through a third party, Amazon, Walmart, Costco, Target. That's how I can talk to them. And that's a problem that could easily have been solved at any point. And I'm still not taking steps on it today. Yeah. Am I the average small business owner who's doing the exact same thing?
Yes, everyone does it, which is why it's the number one recommendation. Get a CRM as stage 1. Stage 2, develop your marketing program, get some sales. But that CRM is going to be working in the background, collecting all of this information that's actionable downstream.
Yeah. Does it need someone who knows marketing to kind of understand that data inside of HubSpot and then help the business owner make decisions off of it? Or can they get wise on it on their own?
Eventually, yeah. Eventually, you'll need someone to decipher all of the data. But from the get-go, you can just have it be collecting it in the background. It's very similar to Google Analytics. Every single company has GA installed. Whether or not they're using it doesn't really matter unless they want to grow and want to scale and want to grow from an informed perspective. HubSpot is the same, or CRMs are the same.
Okay. No, I like it. Who would have guessed that a CRM is the one thing that every business should be doing from day one? I always thought that CRMs were things that you would do like years down the line. But this is an opportunity that I've missed in my own businesses where I've never captured an email address from customers coming to my own website. I was so reliant on the Amazon platform, and that was a big mistake. I did that to my own detriment. Lesson learned there, every business coming now in the future We'll start with the CRM. And apparently, HubSpot's a great one to start with. Let's jump to number 4. John Olson, the self-proclaimed Rainmaker of Wall Street, had a piece of advice for anyone who's looking at their business to see how investors and real investors are going to evaluate that business. John knows how to evaluate businesses. He's worked with them, but he also does one thing that most retail investors never think to do, that all institutional investors and hedge funds always do. Here's that one thing that he said sets them apart from the retail investors. I gotta wonder though, with someone of your skill set, coming from Wall Street, now in investor relations and helping businesses out with that, you must have like a leg up against the average retail investor in terms of knowing what to look for in a company to invest in. Do you not?
Sure. I mean, I look at a lot of different things. I look at the numbers, like a lot of people do. I look at patterns over 2-year periods, 6-month periods. But one of the things that I go above and beyond, if I'm going to invest in a company or become a shareholder, I call the management and I speak to them. I ask them if they have an investor deck. If they do, I ask if they'll send it to me. I ask them questions that I would ask any business I would potentially work with.
Yeah.
And they should be able to
do
answer
that
those.
for any investment amount. You'll call, talk to the management.
Correct, because I'm not going to put my money into something that is potentially going to lose me money if I can help it. Because you can learn a lot by talking to the management and gauging where their vision is with the company. You don't necessarily have to agree with every part of their vision for the company long term, but there has to be a long-term play involved, especially with a public company. If you're OTC, you should either be looking to uplist to a major exchange like the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ, or you should be looking for a merger or be acquired by a major. That should be the end game for most of these companies. For example, one of the companies I'm working with now, that was one of the major questions I asked him. I said, what's the long-term end game here? Is it to become a New York Stock Exchange or a NASDAQ company and run this and keep the patents? And he said, no, I think what you said was the best route. I think we build it up and we try to license the patents out and then potentially down the road sell the patents. So that's his exit strategy, which I agreed with. And that was what made me say, okay, he's got a really good strategy of how he can execute the end game of this company, which, I have 1.3 million shares in the company. So if the end game works out, it's a good end game for me. So
how many retail investors know that you can just call up the management of these small cap stocks and just talk directly to them, get an idea before you invest in them, whether or not it's a good investment to make? Are these upstanding people? What's their plan for the future? You see, most retail investors hop on Robinhood, they buy a stock, and then they start to dig into it on StockTwits or on Yahoo Finance to try to figure out more about that stock. That's backwards. Hedge funds don't do that, and smart retail investors don't do that either. Instead, they call up the management, they have a conversation, and decide whether or not it's a good investment for them to make. All right, lesson number 5, and this is a great episode with Mike Tonelli, who has a great lesson for us about failure and how to look at failure in some of the early junctures that we go into in our businesses that get us where we need to go. Here's what he had to say. I think it's important to point out that so many of the entrepreneurs that I talk to, whether they found great success or not, they all have a moment where their mind gets a little bit fucked on like, oh, I just made $800 sitting here in class. How long would it take me to make $800 in the job I get in economics that I get after school instead? And you start to think through, wait, there's other ways to do this a whole lot better.
I didn't have a job at that point, obviously. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, am I an idiot? Am I gonna do this? And like, I could literally at that point make $800 a day, do the math. And I'm like, why am I going to sit here I was a marketing major. Which, spoiler alert for me, I didn't become a marketing major or a marketing.
You will use that in this though, guaranteed.
So
you will use that.
The idea is, I think everybody should just try. Like I had so many guys in school, some making fun of you, some being like, that's awesome. I was like, dude, try it. Like not even my thing. Try something.
Yeah.
Figure it out. Fuck it up. Excuse my language. But like my first product broke even. But guess what? All the information I got, all the suppliers, all the connections, even just like whatever I did connected me to you, connected me to this. Like all these things are some way going to get me to where I want to go. And it really just comes down to not giving up and just being momentous, if you will. Have momentum, keep going. And if you stop, it's like coming back down. You just keep going and it gets to that point. But
what is it about Twitter? X. I'm only been on X since January 1st of this year.
You're fresh.
So I'm thinking to myself, man, if I had this opportunity and I had known that this is where the action was taking place when I was in my early 20s, I wonder what the impact would be over me being 35 today and where I'm at and having that knowledge at a younger age. Because
That network.
yeah, like it is. How long have you been on Twitter for?
Now, I mean, like, I call it, you have money Twitter. I'm sure you've heard of it.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
I try not to call it money Twitter. It's like obviously a joke, but that type of Twitter, about like 2.5 years, Bowtied Bull, you ever heard of them?
No, I don't. No, I haven't.
It was one of my buddies. He was like, you should look at them. They're really good finance option advice. And I was like, okay, so I'll take a look. So that was my first like positive social media to ever like take in. I'm like, all right, I'm watching like dumb videos. Now I'm finally actually learning something.
And this is just 2.5 years ago.
2.5 years ago.
So you are post college at this point, still in college.
Maybe 3.5 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. What am I at now? Yeah, so actually more like 3.5.
So you're still in college, but
Yeah.
the first couple years of college, you're consuming normal social media content that everybody takes down.
Yeah.
Like mind is just turning to mush.
Barstool or whatever.
What I want to talk more about, like getting into the money Twitter, but what was it that motivated you or that opened your eyes to like, oh, I should look at some of this other content there too? Was it just that it came across your feed and you were like, oh, that's interesting?
I think I was
Sparks an interest.
I think it was just, I was always interested in like younger people that have like figured it out and been successful. And I'm like, well, there's no way I'm going to get this if I don't research it. And like, I say like I research, but a lot of it just comes to you. I'm sure you've seen on like a Twitter feed or whatever it is, like something just pops up and then you dig into it.
Yeah.
Like I'm not one that goes out on like social media marketing. Like something comes in and then I dig into it. So I was like, well, I got to put myself in the right spot. And like, I think that really comes down to all young people. Like it just comes down to, or older, it doesn't matter, putting yourself in the right spot for, let it hit you in the face. You know what I mean? Like that's going to give you the opportunity where you understand this is something I could see myself doing. Okay, great. You have to first get your feet wet, like you said.
This is really important because the content that we consume tells us a lot about what we're going to do in our future. Mike was out looking at content of people who had made it, who had done things that were also his age, who were also young. And then he went out and tried it himself, and he didn't lose any money. He just broke even. But the lessons that were learned from what he considered to be a failure, but in reality, he was getting paid to learn, or at least he was breaking even to learn for free. That's a really important lesson there. Now, number 6 is John Aspinall, who comes from the agency world on the marketing side, specifically on Amazon. I also call him the click-through rate greatest of all time, because this guy knows a ton about what you should put into your images to get more clicks. But he has some interesting insight here for us about how these agencies work. And if you're going to start a small business, eventually you're going to work with a marketing agency. And you need to know what he has to say about their motivations and what's important to them. Let's take a look.
So with most agencies, you have to look at how agencies charge, right? So if an agency is charging on a project basis, right? Let's say, take out full service agency. If it's just a creative agency, they're charging per project. There's no MRR, there's no revenue sharing that's there. So they're looking at the whole picture and they're looking at it like, okay, we want to sell you. We don't want to sell you just a main hero image. We want to sell you on the image stack, the SEO, the brand story module, the brand store, the premium A+ content, and all that kind of good stuff. So they're not really focused on, okay, this will grow your sales down the road, but they're not with you for that journey, right? They're with you for this project to give you those deliverables. And yeah, it'll go great. We're hoping so. And a lot of people have good success with that.
Yeah.
And then a full service agency, they're selling you on the gamut, the whole entire thing, the PPC, the troubleshooting, the SEO, all that kind of stuff. So the agencies that I see that are really tripling down on CTR are the ones that have rev share built into their pricing model, right? So as that brand grows, they're also getting more MRR and stuff like that. So the agencies that are concerned with growth and more rev share really are tactical with this kind of stuff. And we have a ton of agencies at PickFu that do this and understand it and are certified PickFu agencies, and they get it. So where is the quickest and easiest lift that we can do? It's going to be on the main image.
Yeah.
And, from there, it's like, okay, let's take a look at now the main image is up. It depends on how the structure is done. So for me, it's like incremental. So if I change your main hero image and nothing else, like if you change too much at one time, you don't know what caused the lift. Was it, so when someone does a full listing optimization with Premium A+, with a good hero image, they're attributing it to, oh, we did the Premium A Plus. That's why it's so great. That's why it's so awesome. Is it?
Yeah.
So unless you're strategically, incrementally, that's the right word? Yeah.
Yeah.
Going from hero image, cool. Now image stack, cool. Now SEO, cool. And then doing it that way, then you're able to see the actual path and roadmap as to why you're having success. Because if you don't know why something took off and is doing really well, how can you replicate it?
Really interesting insights there from John Aspinall, the CTR GOAT, as I call him. I think it's really important for us to know the motivations behind these agencies, and also that the ones that work off of a revenue share are very focused on click-through rate. No matter what business you have, click-through rate is important. Whether you're looking on Google search or looking to put yourself somewhere to be seen on Amazon, click-through rate matters. And a focus on that could be the difference between you converting more of your customers just by getting more at bats. Let's jump to number 7. Eva Hainzer has some really interesting insights about risk and how we take those risks and what the back end of that risk looks like for us. Let's take a look. You've been there, done that, and it's just kind of like, yeah, okay, I'm taking risk.
Yeah,
Doesn't feel anywhere near as big as the first one.
for sure.
I think that's what I'm hearing you say.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Because you have your first win. You got some money in the bank. You got you got a long leash, so to speak, for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you can make mistakes here and there. Ideally, you don't. And these have been going great, but you have a little bit more backing, which that is the financial freedom. It's going back to the financial freedom portion, where the only way you can create that is by not putting yourself in debt in all these different cars, student loans, all these different aspects. It's bad debt. It's some people might say student loan. Oh, that's good debt. No. That's bad debt.
I've never seen it be good debt. Okay?
I've never seen.
Not yet.
No. That's bad.
I'm still paying it off 25 years later,
Yeah,
but that
I
was
know,
some
man.
good
Isn't that
debt
crazy?
to get.
That is
It's
crazy.
great marketing that they've sold us on. The student debt is good debt.
I mean, it's incredible.
Buying a house, good debt. Student loans, good debt. Buying the house, I agree with that, depending on how you use it. Student loans, hell no. Oh wait, how about a 7-year car loan? It's good
my
debt.
goodness.
Gotta have a car to get around.
goodness.
You know the way this car is gonna make you feel when you're in it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's break that down and move on. The confidence that you had to make this second investment because you had been there, done that one time, had a win. It's a bigger bite to take off now, but I feel like you already knew the things you needed to do and had the confidence that, hey, I kind of know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be fine.
For sure.
I can take more risk now to make this
Absolutely.
happen. And that's worked out very well for you because now you have these Airbnbs that are, have you ever paid a mortgage payment on an Airbnb that wasn't covered by the collective rent incomes?
No, it's seasonality, but you have enough in the bank and you're cash flowing enough where your LLCs, you have it broken down where it's very clear to, in a glance, visualize the health of your business. And that's how I have it set up.
So
And
just to be clear, you have owned multiple homes in the last decade and you never made a mortgage payment with your own money.
never made a mortgage payment. No, a rent payment where I lived, but
Yeah.
investments always were mortgages.
Which is crazy to think
Yeah.
about. That's completely wild that you can own real estate and never have made a mortgage payment of your own. That's a phenomenal investment. House hacking. I did house hacking when I was first getting started, when I was still in the military. I never made my own mortgage payment until after I got married and kicked all the roommates out. Look into house hacking. If you're getting started, you want to find a way to live for free, save some money, and start building equity in a home. That could be very well the foundation that gets you into business or helps you to save up a fund to start in business. And Eva Hainzer did that as well. Really, really cool stuff there. Now, let's go to the next episode, because in this episode, Eva Hainzer, who happens to be Steve Hainzer's wife, power couple, let me tell you, gives us some insights about when it's time to hire your very first employee. Now, she's an expert in hiring offshore employees, and I've hired over 30 people offshore, and I think it's a great way for you to get started. But there's a mindset shift that you have to get into when it's time to hire that first employee, and it's not exactly what you would think. Let's take a look. So I had a conversation with one of my team members in the new business not even a week ago, and he was super frustrated. He came in, he's like, we've got the wrong team. Like, I have to do 70% of the work to get them to give me what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
Kind of what I mentioned before about upfront investment. So with an employee, when you first hire them, you have to realize that the first 3 months, typically that ramp up period, you're going to be doing most of the work. You're going to be checking every little thing. You're going to be putting more time into your job, into the job in general, than you did before you hired them. And that's when you get pissed off. You're like, why am I paying this person? Now I'm putting more time. It's supposed to save me time.
Yeah.
Well, it typically takes any employee really 90 days to ramp up and to fully understand a job and to be able to have some autonomy. So I say be patient. If you're not giving someone 90 days to ramp up, then you're probably just being a dick.
Yeah.
And so I think being very hands-on, over communicating, and giving tons of feedback, like lots of detailed feedback in the beginning, is going to save you, because they're going to learn what you like, what you're looking for, to be able to implement that in the future, and then to start being able to build on that themselves and come up with their own ideas, because now they know how your mind works and what you're looking for.
Yeah. I gave him much the same answer. So I did it more so in like analogy format, where it's like, you ever like taught a kid how to do a puzzle?
Yeah.
You know, like they have no idea where to even get started. And it gets to a point where you have to do like 90% of the work.
Mhm.
Like, hey, 5-year-old, like put the piece here and I'll push it down. Like, you see how that works?
Yeah.
And years later, they come home from school, you come home from work, and the puzzle is like fully done. And you see that, okay, you know how to do this now. But it takes so much time for them to be able to learn. And at first, like, you have to do for them, show them what right looks like.
Yeah.
And then you do it with them. And you give them a little bit of leeway and say, hey, like, you do this corner over here, like, I'll do the rest of it. And slowly over time, like 2 years goes by, and they know exactly what you want.
Yeah.
If you're ready to hire your first employee, be prepared to work more, not less, especially for the first 90 days. And it could be as much as 6 months that you're investing and training that employee, and then they can start to take things off of your plate. But it's never going to happen immediately unless you're hiring a skilled professional, which many times you're already paying 6 figures for that person. A great lesson there about being able to scale yourself up, but understanding you'll have to work more in the beginning. Let's jump to lesson number 9 from Mary Gavri. We delved into a deep debate about whether or not business owners should talk about their politics or their religion, some of those topics that are very taboo. This is a real interesting one, and there's 2 sides to this. Let's take a look. And that's the fear that I think so many business owners live in of, I certainly feel a certain way about it, but I'm not really allowed to talk about that. That's probably off limits. Hey, is this being recorded? Okay, I won't touch on this subject right there. Like it or not, that's the way it is. Now, I offer a bit of different perspective on whether or not you should talk religion, whether or not you should talk politics. It is just my own opinion. But I think about levels of market share. And for the average business owner, they're dealing with less than 1% market share, regardless of what they're selling or what they're in.
Sure.
You're at less than 1%. I've got a couple businesses that are of some size, but even at the size that they are the freckle on the ass of the industry where it's so tiny. So I think about it from the perspective of, if I came out politically and I took a side and told people what I actually thought, raw, unfiltered, and just gave it to them, I know 2 things are true. Number 1, I'm going to polarize half of the voting community.
Yep.
And I'm going to come out and be perfectly aligned with the other half of the people who are out there.
Right.
Let's just say it's 80 million on both sides, voting age people. Is there a higher chance then that I can increase my percentage of market share by coming out and being real and authentic and telling people exactly what I think about politics, whether I'm for Biden, whether I'm for Trump, what my religion is, and letting them see the real me raw and the stuff I'm not supposed to talk about? Or is there a higher chance that my current customers stop working with me because they're like, wait, you're a Biden supporter? You're a Trump supporter? Like, I don't want to do business with you anymore. I have this theory that I've been playing with that, and I've seen it play out. I've got this theory that there's actually more to gain by talking about the things that are considered taboo, because you realign yourself so close and parallel with 50% of the electorate that you probably stand more to gain if you're at 1% and now you have access to 50%. Like, oh my God, Steve thinks just like I do.
Yeah.
It's remarkable to me the business owners I've seen come out, and it's more on the Trump side. It's just more polarizing.
Okay.
Even though the elections happened
Yeah.
at this point,
Yeah.
he won by a decent majority.
Yeah.
They're not the silent majority that they thought they were, or silent minority.
Yes,
It's like
yeah,
it's actually a
yeah.
majority of people that ended up voting that way. But the business owners that came out for Trump, and I've seen how it hasn't affected their business. Now it's in some niche businesses, and I think that it works out well for them. But I find it interesting when I came out politically and I told people what I thought a couple weeks before the election. The number of random DMs that I got, or different types of comments on TikTok and YouTube from people that are like, hey, I know where you stand now on this. And the number of DMs, people that are like, hey, I'm dark MAGA too. You know, like, hey, I'm also voting for Trump
Yeah.
too. Hey, black business owners for Trump. You know, when you start to see that and you realize, okay, by coming out and saying what I wasn't supposed to say, I've actually aligned myself with people that were not on my radar. And
Yeah.
maybe I never ended up doing business with them. It wasn't really about that. But I learned and saw, like, wait a minute. There might be something to this. Maybe it's not as alienating as I thought it was. Your thoughts on that? As I break that down in my own experience, what do you think about
So
that?
David and I talk about this probably too much because it's one of those topics that everyone is just so fascinated by. So he is with you. He says, why can't we share who we are and what we believe, and the people that, like, our people are going to gravitate towards us? And my thing to him is, I don't know that I want to alienate people that I love and that I respect, who have they have fears. Just like, again, they have fears for our country. So whatever side they're on, they're fearing something. Like, you can tell there's hatred on both sides. Like, people think that on each side, like, how could you sell out? How could you vote for that person?
Yeah.
Don't you see what's happening? So I don't like to negate that those people are feeling real feelings. Like, they're really scared. They're really insecure about what's happening on both sides. So I can definitely have a conversation, and it always gets brought up. It always somehow gets brought up, but I don't think I want it to be like online as a presence, because I don't want people to take something, misconstrue it, and then write us off because of something we write online. Let's have a real conversation about it.
Yeah.
And then I think and that's when we will see, fundamentally, if you're a good person, we're probably aligned on many things except our interpretation of what is a good leader.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've sat down with people who think so different from me religiously and politically, and realize we have so much more in common
Absolutely.
than we have that separates us. Where do you fall in this debate? Are you with a team that says you shouldn't alienate anyone? Or do you think more like me, where you say, you know what, getting 50% of a market that thinks the same way that I do might be better for me in the long run than trying to not alienate anyone? And you never get to a point people say, oh, that's Steve. He's my people. I want to do business with Steve. I want to know what you think about that. Put a comment down and let me know what you think. Okay, let's jump to lesson number 10. This is Rob Rolle. He happens to be my twin brother, and he has some really good insight from the fear that people have in their hearts about leaving their secure day job behind in order to go bet on themselves. Let's see what he had to say.
6 years later, when I actually quit my corporate job and stepped away and started like the real business that you invested in and I invested in, and we really started to like, let's go big with this thing. But we could have started it back then. We would be better off today if we had. But I was afraid to take that step because there was some safety in the job. At the time, I was probably making like 120, 130, right? In 2016, maybe a little bit more than that. But my income was growing every single year.
Yeah.
That's hard to walk away from.
It is. And 120K to you now is chump change.
Yeah.
Compared to what you're bringing in now. And even if you'd stayed and climbing the corporate ladder, it'd still be chump change compared to what you'd be making now. But you talk about that fear of stepping away from that guarantee.
Yeah.
And you and I both know people who have those golden shackles of I'm already making six figures. I've got a family. I've got a dog. I've got responsibilities. I can't leave this behind to go jump ship. But I find what you said there really interesting that, hey, back in 2016, I should have just taken the leap then.
Yeah.
What do you know now today about yourself as a business person that you didn't know back then that would have encouraged you to just take that leap?
It's easy to make the statement now, looking back on it, because I understand the determination. I understand I've now seen the evidence of like, no matter what gets thrown at us, we're going to figure it out. Right. I've got this attitude that I can figure anything out. A lot of times I don't figure it out until I'm forced to. And that's what I've seen for myself. So when I look back to 2016 and I say, man, I wish someone would have pushed me off the dock into the water because I would have figured out how to swim. I know that now based on what I've seen. It would have been scary, right? But that's part of what being pushed into the deep end does, right? The strongest are going to survive. So I know that things would have worked out, but I think it's just determination, it's grit, but it's also probably most importantly, even though I didn't know all the things that I didn't know, I look back on it now and say, I knew enough. I knew enough to get started. And that's really all that mattered. We had customers who were willing to pay us when I was doing this semi-part-time, right? They were willing to separate themselves from their dollars for the value that we were providing. That's already more than enough. How many businesses have you heard of that start where people not only put their own money into it, but take on investors and never make a dollar, right? They don't know how to get that first customer.
Yeah.
So looking at it now with what I know today, like we already had the signal that we were providing enough value to the marketplace for someone to pay us. And that's enough for you to go ahead and take that chance. Here's the other thing I'll say. The longer I waited in my career and the more that my corporate income increased and my life comfort level increased, I realized the less likely it was that I would ever step away.
Yeah.
That I would ever start this thing. And so I felt like in 2022 at 32, 33 years old, like this is my last chance to actually get out of here before I take on that next role where the perks are just too good. The pay's just a little bit too sweet to be able to go ahead and bet on myself now. The risk reward is just not.
It's such a funny thing that we think we have security in our day jobs, but we find out we're really just a number to them. So many people that thought they were safe and secure during COVID found out that they were a number and they could be laid off. And that's been in some industries for years following the pandemic, that you're just a number. If you don't bet on yourself, if you're just tied to a company, if you think that they have your best interest in mind and that you have a security blanket because you have a W-2 day job, you don't. You're not safe. And the faster that you can learn that you can go bet on yourself and put your future into your own hands, the better off you're going to be. That's it for today's episode. I hope you really enjoyed deep diving on these 10 lessons that we've learned in the first 10 episodes. Now look, we do this every single week. Every single Wednesday at 7 a.m. Pacific, we drop a new episode of the Roll with Steve podcast. So if you enjoy this kind of content, definitely hit the like button, subscribe to this channel. We do this every single Wednesday at 7 a.m. Pacific with a brand new episode. And the lineup of people that we have coming up in future episodes is going to absolutely blow your mind. So stick with us, and I look forward to seeing you next time.